Study blames sexism for dementia in whammons. All right. More women having dementia? It's got to be that sexism. What else could it possibly be? The whammons are disproportionately more likely to get Alzheimer's than men, which has long been attributed to living longer and genetic differences. Oh, you mean the truth? All right, so the truth must be sexist, though. But now, a new study from Columbia University Irving Medical Center has blamed a new cause: sexism. Hey, you hear that, guys? You could cause women dementia by being sexist. You have that power over them. Do you guys know that? Isn't that great? Researchers who reviewed data on more than 21,000 people said that inequality in access to resources and power was causing damaging changes in women's brains that leads to dementia. I know what this is. So, you know what TFM talks about all the time? How that there's a massive correlation to the amount of women's empowerment and how unhappy they are. Like the more unhappy or the more empowered women are as a group, the more unhappy they get. It can't be that. It can't be because they're making themselves miserable by trying to be men. No, it has got to be sexism. This is what passes as science nowadays. I want you, that's the real reason I'm covering this article. This is what passes for science. This is what your taxpayer dollars are going to fund. This is what they want you to trust. Yeah, why don't they look into cats and plasmosis? Yeah, that's a good question. They found that whammons in America's most sexist states had 9 extra years of cognitive decline compared to their peers in the country's least sexist states. Yeah. It can't be like a multitude of other factors. Now, Dr. Justina Avila Rieger, who was an associate scientist who led the study, said, our findings suggest that addressing social inequities may be a powerful way to lower the burden of Alzheimer's among whammons. Nah, I was told to butt out of women's issues, so I'll let you guys handle that. Now, what we know is the structural inequalities shape individual health outcomes by creating barriers to health-enhancing opportunities and resources. No, you know what this is? These women make themselves miserable, which causes a lot of stress, and it's been pretty well known for a while how too much stress has negative effects on your mind and body. They stress themselves out trying to be men. And this is the result. Eventually, these exposures produce disparities in chronic physical health conditions that directly influence brain health, the onset of cognitive impairment, ultimately dementia. Around 6.2 million Americans have Alzheimer's, the most common form of dementia, of which almost 2/3 are women. Yeah, that's because the men are dead. They should study how long men with dementia live relative to women. CDC estimates also show that whammons live 5 years longer than men on average, to 80.2 years compared to men's 74.8. In the study, scientists calculated a structural sexism score for each state by comparing ratios of men to women in the workforce and maternal mortality, among other factors. Oh, man. Remember that your money is going to fund this. This is then compared to the estimates of dementia rates among whammons in each of the states who were born in the 20s and 30s. Researchers tried to get a snapshot of cultural attitudes at the time when whammons were growing up and may have suffered the brain damage that precedes dementia. Results published in a journal of Alzheimer's and Dementia showed that whammons in more sexist states were significantly more likely to develop dementia than those in less sexist states. Overall, they said the most sexist state in the 60s was Mississippi, and the least was Connecticut. I'm sure you could have a million different ways of measuring that would give you different results, but fair enough. The researchers did not suggest a biological mechanism to explain the difference, because that's against the science that says there's no difference between men and women. But they hypothesized the differences in early life exposure to structural sexism, such as less access to the workplace, may be behind the differences. Oh, so they're literally trying to say that more women are getting Alzheimer's because they weren't allowed to work themselves into an early grave like men, which is true. Because if those women were just allowed into those factories where they could inhale asbestos every day, they'd be dead before they developed dementia. So in a way, they're actually onto something. This quote unquote sexist attitude prevented women from dying as early as men, so they lived long enough to develop dementia. It's all making sense. Dr. Avila Rieger said it's possible that early life exposure may be a critical period for structural inequality with direct or indirect consequences that accumulate over time. We also need to tease apart which aspects of structural sexism have the most impact on cognitive health. This is important in terms of making recommendations to policymakers. Any policymakers that take this dog shit seriously, you're not going to get elected again. Oh, man. So dementia is a general term of a group of neurological conditions that cause a decline in brain function, of which Alzheimer's is the most common. I actually, wouldn't being a woman be the most common condition that causes a decline in brain function? Alzheimer's would be second. So while the overall number of cases of dementia is expected to rise in the future, yeah, as people live longer in general, yes, they'll live long enough to develop it more. The rate at which people of both genders are diagnosed is expected to decline. Yeah. Okay. Well, you know what? I guess that makes sense. The overall number increases as the population increases, but the rate relative to both genders, I guess relative to the population. Okay, fine that. All right, whatever. The researchers have suggested the shift may be down to more health conscious lifestyles, including wearables, encouraging people to exercise and watch their diets. I have never used one of those. Writing in Current Year -2, Harvard researchers argue that age is the greatest risk factor for Alzheimer's. Yes! Now, there are rare cases where people get it like early, like in their 30s or 40s. But yeah, most of the time, Alzheimer's kicks in when you're fucking geriatric. So the longer you live, the higher your chance of developing it. So since women live 5 years longer than men on average, they got those extra 5 years to develop dementia. Men built up an immunity to it by being dead. So they added that other factors were at play, pointing to the rates of non-Alzheimer's dementia that were the same between men and women. Researchers suggest this could be linked to women's having stronger immune systems, which they said could raise the risk of amyloid beta protein plaques forming in the brain, which have been linked to causing the disease. Wait a minute. What wasn't that protein plaque thing debunked already? Or was that a diff? Because I do remember, like, within the past few years, it was outed that, like, the major Alzheimer's study that all the others were using was fake, and they were all just they were on a wild goose chase. What wasn't it? This beta protein plaques? Or was it a different protein plaque? I think it was one of those. Yeah, is this the same one? Are these guys seriously referencing a debunked study and trying to consider it legitimate still? Yeah, that's right. I should just shut up and trust the science. That's right. I'm not the expert here. I need to stop noticing things.